Hey there, this is Jon Burcaw, and I've been reading my book, The Sidecar Kings. And if you've been following along up to this point, you know that the riders are about to ride into a very dangerous storm. Well, it's been raining here all day, so I figured put the rain gear on and let's ride. Chapter 7. As the Kings left the dining hall, they made a beeline to the pool. We're back at the MDA camp now. They all dressed in their bathing suits when they woke, so they were ready. Since 4 of the 5 campers from cabin 22 were wheelchair bound, the lift was needed to get them into the water. There's a picture of someone just about ready to go swimming in a pool. The counselors were trained how to use the lift and gently lowered each camper into the water into the waiting arms of another counselor. The one place an MDA camper feels at home more than in a wheelchair is in the water. Connor's yellow flotation collar was bobbing colorfully in the warm water. He enjoyed being dunked. Although Ethan was able to help himself into the water, he still wore a preserver as well. He and his counselor splashed each other. Eddie, Sean, and TJ created a preserver flotilla, and imagined they were the U.S. Naval Special Forces taking on all enemies. Other cabins soon joined the fun. The pool was the place to be. Martin, the camp director, was sitting in his office when he heard the rain beginning to fall on the tin roof above him. A long-time area director for the MDA, Martin had the perfect temperament for the demanding camp director's position. He adored the kids and worked very hard alongside the rest of the staff to make sure every kid's camping experience could be the best it could be. He'd been checking the weather throughout the morning and realized that it wouldn't be long before the storm would worsen. Lightning and lots of wheelchair-bound kids in a pool didn't make safe sense. He checked the weather radar on the TV one last time before heading out to the pool. A band of green with embedded bands of orange and red crossed the little TV screen in his office. The blob was headed straight for the camp. The National Weather Service had issued emergency measures for a severe thunderstorm approaching the area. The emergency broadcast system had been activated, but he was already out the door. Dave saw him first, waving his arms and yelling. But the kids were having so much fun in the water, Martin was impossible to hear. Finally, he burst through the pool fence gate and blew a whistle. The campers all stopped at once. "Everyone out of the pool. There's a storm coming. When you get out, please head over to the recreation hall. Counselors, if you can lift your campers, please do so. We'll use the lift only for the kids that really need it." Martin was calm but authoritative. The counselors did as they were told. Connor was the heaviest of the boys in cabin 22 and was the only one who really needed the lift. Dave and 2 other counselors worked together to get Connor and the rest of the kids out of the water and back into their chairs. The rain began to pick up as well as the wind. The kids by now were aware that what was happening was serious, and they dutifully did as they were told. Ethan walked beside TJ as they made their way to the rec hall. "Hey, TJ, this is pretty cool. Look how black the sky is getting." As TJ looked up over the rec hall, he could hear distant rolling thunder. "Is that them? Is that them? Are they here?" Sean rolled by and broke the news. "TJ, the riders are going to cancel. There is no way they can make it through a storm like this." "No way. I don't believe it," TJ shut back. "Believe it, man. They're not coming." You guys said last night they come every year. They have to come. I can't miss my first ride. Dave ran up to the boys and helped to move them along a little faster. Come on, boys, no messing around now. Let's get inside. TJ was beside himself. Dave, Sean said the riders canceled. Please tell me it's not true. I swear I thought I just heard them. I know I just heard the bikes. That was real thunder, TJ, not Harley thunder, Dave replied. Tell you what, one of my buddies was supposed to ride in with that gang today. I'll see if I can get through to him. My guess is they got a mess on their hands too, but I'll try. Don't worry, little bro, it's all good. The campers all safely reached the rec hall as the leading edge of the storm closed in on the camp. When Dave got inside, he checked his cell and realized he'd already received a message. Bad storm on Eagle Mountain. But it wasn't finished. He was hoping his buddy JD was having trouble with his cell phone, but he knew better. Chapter 8. Eagle Mountain, according to local folklore, had a mystical history. The Native Americans who once lived in the area claimed the mountain to be sacred. This was the place where the eagle, the messenger of the Creator, came from the heavens in a great storm cloud and landed here. The flash of lightning and the roar of thunder was its call. The majestic creature landed in the tall trees at the summit. He then lifted again and descended softly to the ground. As he approached the earth, according to the legend, he reached out his talon, and when he stepped on the ground, became a man. The mountain also happened to be in the path of an eagle and hawk migration flyway. When the weather was clear, bird watchers from all over came to catch glimpses of brown-tails, coopers, and even bald eagles. JD noticed the traffic coming off the mountain. Figured the bird watchers had been chased by the storm. Smart ones, he thought to himself. They are fleeing in four wheels, and we're riding straight into the teeth of this monster on motorcycles. Already soaked to the skin, the garbage bag he had attempted to use for rain gear simply channeled the water onto his body. He felt as if he was riding inside a dishwasher. The thought made him smile. No shower needed today, he said to himself. As he approached the first of many switchbacks, he took a quick stock of the situation. On a sidecar, JD had the added safety of a third wheel, but had less room to move. The two-wheelers had more room to move, but needed it to maintain balance through the ever-increasing puddles. He then looked in his rearview mirrors and saw nothing but white droplets and a faint suggestion of headlights of the bikes behind. He lifted his face shield and turned to glance behind them and discovered the group was right behind him. Like a pair of fighter jets in combat, Pop-Up Jack stayed right up on JD's right rear quarter. He looked almost comfortable in his borrowed rain gear. Was that a smile on Jack's face? Attaboy, Jack, JD said to himself. Hang close, hold on tight, and keep smiling, and we'll get through this. That rain gear I loaned you sure looks comfy right now. The wind had begun to sway the tops of the heavy trees. Small twigs had begun to appear on the roadway as the trees danced in the storm. The brunt of the wind thankfully hadn't reached the road yet. The riding was slow, but still progressing. Cracks of thunder and streaks of lightning now were happening every few seconds, and the rain became harder. The weather sounds had overtaken the bike sounds as the storm increased in intensity. Moving water replaced the puddles and spots, and the riders had to slow down to work their way through the water, making its way unabated down the mountain road. As the determined riders ascended the mountain, the storm's full fury was unleashed. falling twigs became larger branches as the trees whipped wildly from side to side. Leaves and debris swirled around the riders of the wind, and the wind pushed the big machines relentlessly. Suddenly, without warning, a falling branch the size of a man's index finger glanced off JD's windshield and momentarily frightened him. This is madness, JD thought to himself. The kids were waiting for them, but there wouldn't be much riding happening if all the bikes were wrecked. The water and the wind were coming straight on, and visibility was just about zero. He looked for a clearing to stop and wait out the rest of the storm. He knew the riders behind him would continue as long as he did, but would have followed him to a safe place to stop without argument now. As they rounded the next bend, nature had decided for them. A massive tree had fallen across the road, and they had to stop. The riders pulled up to the fallen tree and looked on with amazement. The massive pin oak was 60 feet tall and easily 25 feet wide. Froggy hopped off his bike and was curiously drawn to the fallen tree. He stepped inside the canopy and promptly disappeared. He appeared shortly afterward, and as if on his own personal expedition, reported with a smile that it was reasonably dry within the leaves. The rain continued to fall, and the wind gusted through the narrows. The riders now separated from their bikes and wanted only to get out of the rain. Each rider slowly entered the opening Froggy had entered shortly before. Inside the big tree's canopy, it was indeed drier than it was standing out in the pouring rain. The large oak branches that weren't smashed in the fall to the road made reasonable seats for the drenched bikers to sit on. The group began to realize the tree had offered something to them totally unexpected. All quietly prayed a word of thanks the tree hadn't fallen a few seconds later. Anyone under the tree when it fell would have never survived. The gang listened to the wind whip around them, and when the spray of the outer leaves and the rain spray the outer leaves, but remarkably, the unexpected shelter was reasonably weather-tight and gave them all time to take in what was happening. After a few moments, Jack broke the silence. So what's the plan now? If we go back to the main highway, we won't get to the camp until the evening. Bear was uncharacteristically resigned, but still smiling that big bear smile. This storm is a doozy. Good bet there's damage all over. We're lucky nobody got hurt yet. Once things calm down, we'll get ourselves cleaned up and head back home. We tried, folks. We tried. Chapter 9. Tree and storm. The campers all crowded into the rec center just before the brunt of the storm hit. With limited number of windows and strong concrete construction, the building served the camp well in many capacities. Today, a gang of children, most all of whom were in some kind of wheelchair, called it a refuge. As the storm whipped its fury into the campgrounds, the counselors were concerned the kids would be scared. Dave's cool, easy attitude was a huge help, though. It also didn't hurt that he was a firefighter. Firefighters in the MDA have a very special bond to begin with. Firefighters across the country annually raise enormous amounts of money for Jerry's Kids for the MDA. They have sent countless kids to camp and have provided millions of dollars to the MDA research effort over the years. The kids gathered in their groups and talked among themselves. The counselors had worked hard not to panic the kids. Their hard work had paid off. But just as the inside of the building began to settle, the wind drove the branch of a large sycamore tree into one of the center's few windows. The branch couldn't come through because the windows had been covered with steel screens, so errant basketballs could not damage from the inside. The glass fell harmlessly outside the building, but the wind howled through the steel screen. Again, when Dave thought there would be panic, the kids simply mimicked the sound in whatever way they could. Some whistled, some yelled, some used wheelchair horns to overpower the windy noise. Amazing, he thought. These kids are amazing. Chapter 10. The riders, all still in their rain gear and helmets, joyfully joking among themselves, hadn't realized they weren't alone. In the deepest reaches of the now fallen tree, the branches and leaves gradually fell together as the rain and the wind pressed upon them. Within the mass of green foliage was another surprise. A wild screech rolled through the leaves into the temporary sanctuary. At the far top side of the tree, the group made out the silhouette of a large, bald eagle. The bird screeched again and disappeared. Guess she's looking for some dry too, huh, J.D.? Froggy pondered. Don't know, Froggy. She could have been here the whole time. Hope she doesn't have a nest in this tree. Before J.D. could finish the words, Explorer Froggy had disappeared into the foliage. He came back a short time later and reported that there was a nest, or what was left of one, towards the end of the main trunk. Even though an eagle's nest is notoriously strong, it would be tough for any nest to stay together, as the tree it was built in was blown to the ground. J.D. asked, Did you see any other birds in there? Yeah, Mama was either crying 'cause her house got smashed or rejoicing 'cause she didn't lose her young'uns. He continued, We're sharing a tree with 3 eagles. Above the wind and rain, another sound slowly worked its way into the huddled gang. Sounds like a car or a truck motor, Jack reported. Diesel truck, Bear corrected. He could name the sound of virtually any vehicle on the road. It sounds like he's above us. He must have come from the other side of the Narrows, and that means that if there's a way to get around this tree, we might be able to keep going. In all the commotion the eagles had caused, the group hadn't realized the rain had begun to let up. The group of soggy riders slowly worked their way toward the noisy diesel truck. Turns out it was a diesel pickup, like Bear had declared. The driver couldn't believe his eyes as all the riders stepped out of the foliage of the fallen tree on his side. The drenched riders looked like a band of colorful astronauts. He rolled down his window and looked into Bear's smiling, cheerful face. You guys aren't hiking around in that gear, are you? Did you lose your mother's ship in the storm? And he laughed. Bear laughed also, the only way Bear can, and responded, Ha! Nah, wise guy. We got about 20 motorcycles on the opposite side of this tree. We were headed to the MDA camp in the next valley when the storm hit and blew this tree onto the road in front of us. Man, oh man, you guys are either really brave or really crazy to be riding in weather like this, the pickup driver said. I've never seen a storm hit so quick and so hard like that. The road is clear from here up, but barely. I was at the summit when the storm let loose. I put my winch cable around one of the big oaks up there and just held on tight. I figured if the tree let go, I would go with it. Good thing I didn't attach myself to this one. I'd be under it now. Bear nodded and responded, Any chance that winch you got up front can help us make a path? Better than that, the driver cheerfully beamed. I got a saw, and I can cut you a path. With a little help, we can cut you in a slot in no time. We'll need a pretty big slot, Bear added. We got a couple of sidecar rigs that need to squeeze through, too. Sidecars? You guys headed to the camp to give rides? The pickup truck driver asked. Bear smiled. My kid was a camper a few years ago. You guys from Big's Harley-Davidson up in Pleasantville by any chance? Bear replied, Yup, that's us. The driver continued, One of your guys gave him a ride. I actually think it was a woman on the motorcycle. My son never forgot that ride. That was probably one of my daughters who gave your son his ride. They are both here somewhere. Bear beamed. He was very proud of his offspring. What's your name, driver? Bear inquired. I'm John. Well, pleasure there, John. If you can help us get through the hunk of wood, I'd be obliged to you. By the way, what are you doing up this way anyway? Bird watching, John said. Could have swore I heard a baldy not too long ago. Have I got a bird story for you, Bear chuckled. And as the pickup driver got his saw ready, Bear related the amazing story of the eagles. John began clearing the small outer branches first. He was careful to avoid the area where Bear thought the eagles were perched. What he had not known was that the eagles had made a hasty exit after Froggy had found them. In a few minutes, a single path was cleared. With the help of other riders, the road was soon clear enough for them all to pass. After the bikes were through the tree, Bear stopped and thanked John the only way he knew how. Hey, John, next time you're up around Pleasantville with your son, bring him by the store. We'll be glad to take him and you for a ride. You can count on me to take you up on that offer, Bear, John responded excitedly. The group exchanged grateful thank yous and handshakes and continued on their way. This ends the reading